Welcome back to Can You Fix It UK, and yes we can. So what we've got today is a Sony Vaio SVE1512 that came in with a damaged headphone jack. Jack works, the socket works rather, but the jack is loose and has to be held in position for it to work, and we're going to attempt to fix it today. First of all, a couple of apologies. I forgot to plug the microphone in when I was doing soldering work, so you've got no sound there. And the quality, I know the quality of the sound of the audio is not very good on this. I sound like I'm talking out of a bottle. But anyway, on to the main event. The motherboard's out, and here's the offending article. You can see on the circuit board the broken headphone socket and my replacement part just to the right of it, which is ready to be installed. Our challenge with this repair is there's a large metal shield on the other side of the microphone, the headphone jack part, and that's going to create some problems unsoldering the 4 points here. You see that the shields are connected to, because the shield will act as a heatsink. I'll just show you here now the heat shield, or the shield. This is going to cause us a problem because it will suck all the heat out of the soldering iron when we attempt to unsolder it, and it is soldered on both sides of the circuit board, so that's going to be additional problems. Also, it's quite tight between the headphone jack in black and the microphone jack in red. The microphone jack's working fine, so we need to try not to damage that in the process. Okay, so again, soldered on both sides, four points for the shield, and there's the data connections. And you can see the data connections on the new part. If I just lift it up, you can just see all the little pins that need to be connected. So the data's down that side, and the other 4 pieces are just the shield. Funnily enough, you can actually see the inner workings of the jack port here, which something you can't normally see. I'll just plug in a jack and show you what it looks like when it goes in. As you can see, it depresses the spring leaf and then disconnects speakers and connects your headphones, or in this case the microphone, as I plugged the wrong end of the lead in. So that's quite interesting, being able to see the inner workings of a headphone jack, because you don't often see those. So we need to avoid damaging these plastic parts, because these are very thin covers to these jacks, these sockets, and we need to make sure that we don't damage it. This jacket actually works, but you have to hold it in to make it work, so that's obviously not acceptable to the customer. And I did manage to get a new part. So our challenges are going to be unsoldering that shield. And my solution? A very large tip on my soldering iron. Okay, and also we're going to use some low melt solder alloy to allow me to melt all the connections at the same time with the heat gun to enable me to get this socket out. You very seldom can repair, this is the chip quick low melt solder. You can very seldom harvest these ports successfully, just because they take so much damage, usually getting them in and out of motherboards. They're designed to go in, they're not designed to come out. So I'm going to get some solder and start melting the low melting point alloy into the existing solder joints, and hopefully you can see that process now. The low melting point alloy does not have flux inside the way normal multi-core solder does, so I'm just adding some liquid flux to the solder tags where we're going to desolder, just because it'll help the solder flow. Messy stuff. And then it's just a matter of adding the low melting point solder to the connections, so that you get that low alloy being formed, low melting point alloy being formed. And hopefully it will flow through to the other side, but we shall give it a touch up on the other side just to make sure on the shield. But big blobby bits, not good soldering, but then it's only for desoldering purposes. So I'm just leaving the iron on for a little while with the shields because it's going to try and melt on the other side. Won't be so long on the data ports because I don't want to melt those tracks off. As you can see, I'm bridging across the points because all I'm trying to do is get the alloy in at this moment. And then I'm going to flip it over and just touch up the shields on the other side if I can get the iron in. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get the iron inside between the two jacks, the port sockets rather, the headphone and the microphone socket. But we'll give it a try. Bit of flux just to help the solder on. Okay, now let's try and get some solder onto those sides of the shield. To contact with the shield to help it get hot enough to take the solder. Well, that seems to have gone well. Yep. Now let's see if we can get some solder alloy onto the other side of the shield. I'm not sure the iron's going to go in here. We'll give it a try. Key thing is to get the shield hot, because if you can get the shield hot, then it will melt the solder that's on the shield, but the contact on the other side is relatively small in mass. Okay, so I'll manage to get some alloy on both sides of that. So we are now on to using a heat gun now to try and melt all ports and then pull the remains of this socket off the motherboard. The shield has to come off first, so that's what I'll be attempting to, the 4 large connectors, is get those off first. Okay, so I'm swapping over to the heat gun now. Unfortunately, most of the sequence is off camera, but you can just see me using the heat gun to melt the shield connectors, and I'm just applying a little bit of force with the tweezers to just try and get the shield out of the motherboard. It's actually quite a good resistance fit, so they don't the thing. You can just see I've just raised the front 2 connectors on the shield. I just need to try and get the back 2 off. It's always difficult getting shields off, but the heat gun and the low melt is a very efficient way of doing it, generally speaking, without causing too much damage to everything else. As you can see, it's just off camera here, but as you can see, I can keep a lot of the solder balls molten while I'm trying to manipulate the shield off. Because it's a resistance fit, it is a bit of a mechanical job. It will be easy once the shield is off. It's just about there. Still connected by the data wires at the back of the port, so it's not going to come off. I was hoping the shield would actually just lift off, but it's in the way still. It's not a problem. We'll get it off in a moment. Okay, so flip the board over now. You can still see I've still got the low melt solder balls on there, etc. So I think probably the next thing to do is to get those off. So we're back to some wicking. As you can see, you can just about see when the hole clears that the shield tabs aren't actually in the holes now. So they've actually come out. Just trying to get rid of some of the low melt solder now, just because it all needs to come off the the tabs, otherwise it produces brittle joints, which is not what we want. We want good strong joints for our new connector. Try very hard now not to damage the tracks. Now that we're almost there, we've almost got the headphone jack socket out of the way now. Just need to clear them. It doesn't look now that, because the plastic's starting to get quite soft, it doesn't look like the whole thing's going to come off in one go, so it's probably going to come off piecemeal. As you can just see, some of the connectors inside the socket itself are actually floating around now as most of the solder is gone. The centre hole is circular. It's much more tricky than the oval ones because there's actually a lot more solder in it, and the tab on the data connector goes the opposite way, so it doesn't really want to clear. It's not having it. We have to come back and put some solder on that later to try and clear it. There's still a metal connector in there, so that needs to come out. So probably once that out, it might clear a bit better. So what I'm going to try and do now is just touch up the solder and release the connectors. So as you can see, they are a mechanical fit. It's not just a matter of pulling them out. They have to be swiveled to get them shut. Those pliers aren't really the best ones to do. Tweezers now might be better. Sort of unhooking them round. There you go. So rotate through 90 degrees. There's a loose one there. That's good. Don't forget, if you're looking at this under the microscope, these are really quite tiny. You think of the end of a pair of sharp-nosed pliers, that's how long it is, and that's my smallest tip for the soldering iron that I've got on there. I think that's a 0.8mm tip on there. And what I'm trying to do is deliver heat to a very accurate point without letting the heat spill out everywhere else. And because we got the low solder alloy going there, when I had the heat gun on, I had it turned down quite low because it doesn't need a lot of heat to do that. Again, just trying to reduce the amount of damage in the surrounding area. Okay, they are still quite a resistance fit, these. I might need a drop of solder on it as well. They look pretty solidly in there at the moment. So it seems quite counterintuitive sometimes, but sometimes you just have to put more solder on to get the part out. I'm just putting some on the other holes just really to allow me to wick them successfully. Hopefully it's all going to speed on once I've got the old one out. Do another pair of hands here, but a little swivel, change hands, get the tweezers, and away we go. Or maybe not. With the tweezers, you can't actually get a lot of grip on them. You can push down. Right, flip it over again. Let's see what we're dealing with on the other side. This is falling to bit by bit, this headphone jack socket. So as you can see, all the 11 connectors are there. Just get some of the outbound. It's too difficult in that orientation. Let's do that. Okay, these are going to come away, I think. Touch of an iron. Plastic came away. Okay, let's see if we can just get these to go now. Obviously, the iron's got to heat up quite a bit of the copper and gold on these contacts, so it's not surprising it takes a little while. finally, it's all gone. So here's all the bits that I've taken out from the old headphone socket. And then miraculously, I'm going to magic them into a complete one. No, not really. This is the new one I bought. Okay, so what do we need to do next? Well, the next thing to do is to clear the holes, because ideally I want to be able to press the new headphone socket into the holes all the way through, so it's a good, nice resistance fit. In reality, sometimes that's not possible, because sometimes you can't clear all of these holes out properly. But I'm going to give it a jolly good try. The main thing to do is to get rid of all the solder alloy that we've got on there, so it's back to do some wicking now, clean these ports up. So even though those oblong slices look nice and clear, they'll probably be blocked on the other side, often the case. So of course the way the solder wick works, it's capillary action, so the little fine threads of copper will suck the solder along it. I don't use flux, pre-fluxed wick. I find that's quite messy, so I tend to use flux on the board and then put the wick on top. It seems to work quite well. It's not perfectly easy to see on the video, but it goes nice and silver when it's sucking the solder up, so you usually get a pretty good indication where it's going. Okay, that's probably all I'm going to get done on this side, I imagine. Another try. Right, I think that's about as much as I'm going to get done on that side. Time to flip it over. Okay, you can still see that there's still some solder on this side. Two holes that are still filled around one of the data pins, and also the one at the top left as well is blocked. But there's still some solder also in the shield socket, so we'll just give this a clean up and then we'll try a test fit of the new headphone socket and see if it will slide in. Sometimes you have a blocked hole and it's absolutely paper thin, and you can actually just push the wires or the connectors or the tabs straight away through it, so that may be the case here. But I have a cunning plan at my hand for that round hole, because I don't think that's going to clear. I've done a couple of these before and they've never cleared for me before, so the tabs are looking nice and cleared now. So we just need to try and see if we can get those two holes. I think you can just see that there's a tiny little hole in the middle of it. So what I'm going to do See if I can enlarge that with tweezers, because all I need is it to be weak enough that I can force fit the speaker socket into them, and that will make a good tight fit then. So that's the component side, that's the side we're going to pass through, so we're going to clean this up as best we can. This is very tedious, this bit, but my instructor who taught me soldering very, very many moons ago said that with soldering, cleanliness is next to godliness. If you want a good solder joint, then everything has to be clean and in good mechanical order first. So let's try and see if we can get this to suck out by putting some more solder in. The other plus thing about doing this is because there's still solder down there, we don't know whether it's the alloy solder, so adding more just dilutes the alloy further and makes it more of a stronger solder than the low melt stuff is. Well, I don't think it's going to come out. Try and pierce it again with the tweezer. And then the hand as well. You do have to be very careful when soldering the small pads, just in case they start to lift. Okay, I think I've done all we could do now, so it's time to clean up all that flux residue that gets left. Again, just cleanliness is next to godliness when you're soldering, so this is alcohol, just to clean up the flux. The flux I use is soluble in alcohol, so it cleans up quite nicely. You just see the pads aren't completely empty of solder there, so we'll have to do a test fit of the socket to see if it will go in. If not, I'll have to try and do some more cleaning, but we'll see whether it goes in. It might be paper thin and just slide in. So just cleaning up the excess flux. A bit more alcohol. It evaporates quite quickly because the board's still quite warm, so okay, so this is the test fit of the socket, and I think you can see that tabs have all come through, so they are looking good. Even the ones in the blocked holes look as though they're through. So I think we should quickly just touch up the ones that aren't quite through and just make sure that they are pushing through as far as them. So I'm just applying a bit of pressure on the back of the shield to just press them into the holes. I'm quite confident now they're right the way through. So the first thing to do is to solder the shields on to secure the socket. I don't want it popping off now. We've gone through all this problem, so this is the first thing to do. So this is just regular multi-core solder, so you can see its flux is burning off as you put it on. Troublesome circular ports. Rotating it around so get the other two shield connectors just off camera there. Checking to make sure they're through still. Just off camera. Takes a little while just because the heatsink effect of the shield on the opposite side. Okay, I'm just going to touch up the shield. Can't get at the daisy pins on this side, but I'll just touch up the shield just to make sure that it's soldered on this side too. It's not strictly necessary, but good practice. Going to the other two on the other side. Okay, that is done. Just now, Mara cleaning up the flux that's been left over from soldering. Touch up a few pads perhaps that need a touch more solder, and away we go. Which basically means reinstalling this back in the laptop case and testing it. So there you have it. there's a successful Sony Vaio SVE1512 headphone socket repair. It was tested okay and the customer was very happy with it. So you've been watching Can We Fix It UK, and yes we can. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Apologies again about the audio. Also, I noticed I didn't put any scene shots in there, so hopefully I'll sort that out for the next video we do, and hopefully I'll do them more often. Please leave comments below if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.